Okay, here we are. To anyone who's on the Hangout and watching, thank you very much for your patience. We've had a bit of a challenge, technically speaking. We are a technology company based in San Francisco, but obviously we have a long way to go in terms of figuring out other technology company platforms. But thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Joe Speicher. I'm the director of the Autodesk Foundation. And today I'm joined with Vin and Patricia, two of our grantees from the foundation. The Autodesk Foundation is a newly formed foundation that is pushing forward the emerging world of designing for social impact. And we're joined today by two of our initial grantees. How about you guys introduce yourselves? Vin, can we start with you?
Sure, and first off, thanks, Joe, for organizing the call. D-Rev is really thrilled to be part of the Autodesk Foundation program. It's already been quite a tremendous help to us, and so we really appreciate being able to participate. So, as Joe mentioned, my name is Vin. I'm a product manager for D-Rev, and D-Rev is a nonprofit organization that develops products. We design, deliver, and scale products for low-income markets. We typically focus on medical devices, and we find that every product that we work on has to meet kind of three core philosophies. They have to be world-class. We don't sort of believe in stripping down products or taking something that's designed for the US or Europe and kind of de-featuring it so that it can be affordable. We want it to be able to perform to the clinical standards that people everywhere deserve and expect. The product should be market-driven. We don't want to develop something that's going to depend on long-term subsidies because we feel like it can't then scale up to meet the true size of sort of the problem or the market need. Not every product should be scaled in that way, but we try to look for things that kind of fit that niche. For example, we say that we're never going to be developing a vaccine anytime soon. It probably wouldn't be too cost-intensive to do from that perspective. And the third thing is that our products all have to be user-centric. They have to be specifically designed for the patients and customers that we are trying to work with. Again, not taking something that's designed for another market and kind of transitioning it. We want to look from the ground up at what challenges people in our target countries are facing and how we can best suit their needs. The Remotion product that I work on, I'm the Remotion product manager. It's a prosthetic knee joint. Essentially, our goal with that is to take higher technologies or higher performing knee joints and basically develop something that's high performance but still affordable and can meet the sort of needs of an amputee in the developing world and help them accomplish their goals of becoming more independent and returning to work. And we're just trying to support that mission by developing an effective knee prosthetic.
That's great. Thanks, Vin. That's fantastic. And I'll contextualize in a bit. Patricia, maybe you can talk a little bit about MAS.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Patricia Gruitz. I'm a project manager at MAS Design Group. And MAS Design Group got its start about 5 years ago through the design and construction of the Butaro Hospital in Rwanda. And MAS is now a nonprofit architecture firm, which is kind of a new type of architecture firm. And we're really interested in building infrastructure and buildings throughout the developing world that can help address health, economic, and social challenges that we face today. And we do that now not only with healthcare projects, but also with education projects, housing, et cetera, throughout not only Africa and East Africa, but also in Haiti and now in the US. All of our work has similar sort of processes. We really look to partner with people who are on the ground working in these limited resource settings. So, for example, doctors or nonprofits or foundations who are already sort of working with either issues of health or social sustainability. And so we partner with them to help them build infrastructure and realize their missions and really support the programs that they have in place. And so we do that, one, by engaging the communities that they work with, understanding their specific needs of the infrastructure that they're planning to build. We then partner and continue to partner with the community throughout the design, but also then in construction, really leveraging the construction process to take unskilled local community laborers, unskilled laborers, and using the architecture and construction to train new architects and build capacity within the countries which we work. So that might be not only training architects, but also training masons and carpenters, as well as just providing all of the income generated from that construction process, all of that coming and sort of feeding back into the communities in which we work.
That's great. Thank you both for those introductions. I should say you guys really encompass, you and your organizations encompass exactly these type of thinking that we want to proliferate in the world, and that is the application of design and design principles for social impact. And so as impact designers, I thank you both for joining us, and this is really exciting. And for our viewers, I'll just explain. Autodesk, the foundation is set up to support organizations just like these through financial benefits and through non-financial benefits. So our software suite, this is a perfect example at Mass Design of being able to apply some of the Autodesk software products to a nonprofit organization building actual infrastructure, hospitals and schools in developing countries. In the case of D-Rev, it's creating products. It's the product design suite, creating products that are user-centered and applicable to developing countries as well. So in that vein, Vin, perhaps you could talk a little bit about design and the core of design to D-Rev.
Sure, and I'd say design as a process is critical to everything that we do. So as I mentioned, we have to kind of reevaluate each market that we're trying to go into and each product area and figure out from scratch what each person in the chain really needs and how we can address those needs with a product so that it can actually scale successfully. With the knee, a quick example, the knee mechanism that we're using is a design called a polycentric design, and that basically it's a bit more complex than the lowest cost design on the market, but it's been used in prosthetics for about 50 years now. It's been around for quite a long time. The problem is that it was always used in an iteration that wasn't really accessible to low-income amputees. It was traditionally made from very heavy metals such as titanium or stainless steel, which made it very expensive to produce and therefore very expensive to sell. It also wasn't designed for the kind of environmental requirements that a user in the developing world might need if they're trying to get back to an agricultural job, for example, as opposed to returning to a desk job or working something along those lines. So it's critical that we use the design process to make sure that we both understand those needs and are able to design a product that kind of addresses them. And I think the really cool thing about the design process is that it means not just looking at one user, it means looking at every single user and kind of reiterating and redoing your process until you have a product that works well. So for us, that means that a distributor, for example, has to be able to make margin on the product and be incentivized to sell it and distribute it. A clinician has to be able to order it effectively and sort of be able to afford it for their clinic and be able to receive it. And a patient, of course, it needs to be stable and enable them to do the kind of activities that they want to be able to do and kind of empower them to go back to work or contribute to their family. And I think the design process is critical because it means approaching each of those things, not just the physical implementation of the product, but all of these different systems, even the business aspects, to ensure that it's meeting all of those needs.
Yeah, that's great. And Patricia, you touched on this a little bit at the top, but how does Mass incorporate user needs or the beneficiary in consideration of projects?
Sure. I mean, this is something that when Mass first got its first project at the Bitaro Hospital in Rwanda, it was incredibly important to us that, or what we learned through that project is how important it is to involve the community at every phase of the design process. That means both early on throughout the design, meeting with certain stakeholders, as well as then at the end game, really getting them involved in the construction of the project. And so what that kind of resulted in is each project that Mass undergoes, we do a process which we call immersion. And really that means immersion into the community, engagement with the different stakeholders, whether that be because we partner with foundations, people on the ground, there's oftentimes people at a very sort of higher level of the organization. But then there's also, whole communities and teachers or students that might be working or living in these spaces that we're trying to create. And so really understanding their needs is best sort of, we go through sort of a design thinking process with the communities, understanding not only their needs and opportunities, but also their priorities. And so that's something that is integral to each project at Mass. And, I would say also at Mass, the way that we talk about design, a lot of people come to us wanting, I just need a hospital. I don't need anything fancy. I just need a school. I don't need anything fancy. And they say that a lot. And I think at Mass we react to that thinking that, we're really against just providing the bare minimum in terms of infrastructure. We've seen the bare minimum fail, oftentimes relating to even just promoting poor health outcomes, and really where the infrastructure, for example, at a clinic in South Africa that did not have architects involved and was sort of designed with a double-loaded corridor, which created really unhealthy spaces for patients to wait while they saw the doctor, and it really promoted a spread of highly drug-resistant tuberculosis and actually resulted in upwards of 50 people dying because of their visit to this clinic. And so what we really believe is that it's not about providing just the bare minimum infrastructure, but really providing, through the design process and through the construction, dignity. That beauty is important in these spaces. And as we begin to build the infrastructure in these developing settings and these resource-limited settings, that beauty is a huge part. Design is a huge part in providing dignity, community, and empowering communities to even, take responsibility and ownership of the work that we do.
Yeah, and I'm backing into this question here, but maybe each of you could take 30 seconds to a minute and describe how you got involved in this work. Ben, can we start with you?
Sure. So I got involved originally as a student at Stanford. I was there for graduate school and just happened to work on a medical device design class that was trying to tackle some of these issues, working with a large prosthetics organization in India. And that's where the first version of the Remotion knee was actually developed. And so starting from there, we essentially, when the class was over, we spun it out of Stanford to try and take this from a product that was helping one organization in India to scale up and try to meet all of the clinics around the world that needed a device like this. It eventually became a full project within D-Rev. So it was kind of I don't want to say an accident, but if it is, it's a happy accident. But I've been working on it for about 5 years now.
Wow. Patricia.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, actually a very similar kind of story in that I went to architecture school, have a design background, and got involved with actually a product design of a solar-powered lantern, a sort of sustainable source of power and light that we were using in the developing world. And it was a product that kind of developed out of school, became its own nonprofit called Portable Light. And it still exists today, but from that work, I started then teaching at RISD because there was a lot of interest in the student population to understand how design could be used to empower social change. And so I was working at RISD and got involved in Mass sort of through a similar sort of set of projects that I was doing with students at RISD that were reflecting community engagement as well as high quality design in developing settings. And so I've been with Mass now for almost 2 years and have been working on a range of projects here, one most notably being the maternity waiting homes, which is the Autodesk sponsored project. So very excited to be here now at this evolution of a very sort of awesome journey.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Both you guys probably have some interesting examples of your work. Then I know in the Autodesk gallery we have a couple versions of Remotion, but maybe you could show us some examples today. And Patricia, if you have any examples as well, we'd love to see them.
Sure. So I can show you first what the state of the art was on the market before we kind of developed Remotion. So what we found was that in kind of the Western markets, so to speak, you were getting devices like this. This is a polycentric knee constructed out of metal, performs very well, but quite expensive. Whereas in the developing world, you were getting single-axis knee joints like this, and they basically perform kind of like a door hinge. They're very cheap and affordable to produce, but they don't offer a lot of stability, and they're more difficult to train on, especially for a young, active, healthy amputee. So we kind of tried to merge those two concepts, and the first version of that I have here was called the V1 Jaipur knee, and so you can see there's a socket that goes around the patient's residual limb, a knee that connects below that, and then then sort of a shank pylon, and then a foot. And these are all assembled together to make the full prosthesis. And when we deployed this first one, we expected a lot of the feedback when we talked to patients and talked to clinicians to be around functional aspects of the knee. We expected it to be around, I can do this with the knee, I can't do that, and we were expecting that when we went to the field. And I think this really speaks to what Patricia was saying earlier about involving every single user in every single aspect of the design process, because that feedback was critical to sort of iterating the design. What we found the feedback actually centered most heavily on was was making the device less conspicuous almost. People didn't want to stand out as an amputee, and so the things that they were giving us feedback on were having these kind of sharp corners at the top, if you can see that on the camera there, rounded out so they didn't appear so noticeable when they're worn under pants or a skirt, and having the noise when the patient was walking be a lot less audible because it kind of just created this large alarm sound that drew attention to them. And we use that feedback to sort of iterate, and create, this is what we call the version 3 design. This is the most recent one. We deployed this in field trials last year, and you can see it's come quite a ways in terms of the aesthetics. We added some features like this curved face so that it looks more natural under pants, and that it doesn't have, we added a noise bumper here to kind of make it more inconspicuous while the patient was walking. But most importantly, perhaps, you can see there's a big change in the design aesthetic, the industrial design that we incorporated here. And I think that's really critical, that even though people may not have a lot of purchasing power, nobody wants to feel like they're settling for a subpar product. No one wants to feel like they're buying something that's just kind of stripped down. And so incorporating a design aesthetic is important to making sure that all of this engineering work that you're doing is actually able to reach customers and make it to patients and help them achieve the kind of goals that we're hoping to help them achieve.
Yeah, that's great. And that's it's really cool to see the evolution of the knee through the time. Patricia, you don't have a hospital behind you, do you?
I don't, but I do have some images that I'm going to attempt to show via a screen share. Let's see if this works.
Oh, yeah.
Can anybody see anything? All right, awesome. Let me just open this up. So what I've put together is just like a very quick sort of overview of the project that we've been working on in partnership with the Gates Foundation, UNC, SMI, and Autodesk. And this is really where, we have really appreciated the support of Autodesk from the inception of this project. You guys have been on board and really made this project happen. What we were brought on to do with the maternity waiting home, many people may not know what a maternal waiting home is, and what it does is it's sort of a new typology. In Malawi, this is where this project is located, maternal mortality is still a huge issue, and so what we find is that women are oftentimes giving birth without the assistance of traditional birthing attendants, and with the partnership of the Safe Motherhood Initiative out of the President's Office in Malawi, they've committed to sort of developing maternal waiting homes, which will help women stay at their 36th week in close proximity to a health facility or a health center. And so to explain the project a bit, this is an image that I'm showing you now of a maternal waiting home that was designed by the Ministry of Health in Malawi. And what was noted is that as these projects were being disseminated at health centers or at district hospitals throughout Malawi, is that the homes themselves weren't as successful as they had originally hoped. Women either weren't coming to the homes or they weren't staying at the homes. And so when UNC and the Gates Foundation came to us, they were interested in building a maternal waiting home to support their new maternal care initiatives. But they were interested in redesigning it. They didn't just want to sort of implement the typical Ministry of Health prototype, because it was, after doing an analysis, we discovered that not only was it sort of dark and promoting poor ventilation, but it was also just one large box, one large sort of structure that really was, I think, the embodiment of a bare minimum kind of structure for these women, and it provided zero privacy. It also had very little context. This is an image of a sort of typical village in Malawi. It had very little sort of contextual reference to how women were typically used to living, or maybe what the vernacular was in the villages around these hospitals where these women were coming from. And so we worked directly with the Ministry of Health to take what you see on the left here, as sort of step 0, which is just sort of the long, simple bar of this gabled maternal waiting home, which really is like a barn-like structure, and started to work with the ministry to develop steps by which we could really start to rethink the maternal waiting home. And so when we spoke with women, one of their biggest issues is that it got very hot during the day. And so we were looking for ways that we could create more ventilation. And so we spread the buildings apart. Malawi also gets an incredible amount of rain. And so the women were also saying that they like to be outside, even when it's raining or when it's very hot out. They like to be in these large shaded areas. So we wanted to create roofs that would sort of allow for circulation to always be covered. We then wanted to create shaded areas, as you see sort of step 3 and 4, directly related to sort of the context of sun as well as rain and water collection. On the site where we were working, women were saying that there was only one spigot for the 200 of them that were staying there, and the water would often go out when the power went out, leaving them without any sort of clean drinking water. And so we really wanted to sort of collect water, purify it, and allow that to be part of this infrastructure that we were building. And also security was a really big issue for them. They wanted to feel secure and that this was a unit or sort of a new typology that wasn't a hospital, but it also wasn't a home, but they wanted to feel like they were their own identity. And so we created a perimeter sort of screen wall, which would then create this more as a compound. And this is the plan. You can see it's very different from what was developed as the original ministry prototype. It's roughly the same amount of square foot, but instead of creating one large building, we create many modules, which are small sleeping areas, which allow the women to have more privacy, allows them to still be in groups of 4, which there is a huge sort of communal aspect to these maternity waiting homes and to the maternity process. For women, we created separate washing areas that allowed them to have more centralized and more private washing, as well as creating an area for education. Part of the program that UNC is developing focuses on using this waiting period where women are coming, waiting outside of these hospitals and health centers as an opportunity to teach people not only maternal education and infant education and how to care for their child, but also potentially other skills. And so one of the opportunities, you see these large columns, we're developing a new material, cement stabilized earth blocks, and because this is a seismic area, we're using bamboo. And so you see in this images here, the way that we're using that structure not only to support the building, but also to provide additional functions which are necessary. For example, storage, where the women can actually store their belongings while they stay, benches where they can sit outside as opposed to sitting on the ground. And so that just became a real formwork for how we decided to design the building. And this is the rendering of one of the education spaces. You see those columns sort of defining these public spaces, as well as in this space looking at different ways of courtyards and covered circulation. And one part that's interesting about mass that we didn't talk about before, where we are with this project now, is that it is going to go into construction this fall. And so what we have here is a really interesting way of evaluating the value of design. So we talk a lot about, we talked earlier about design and why it was important to us and why it's important to our process. And what we're trying to evaluate through this project is not only the value of the qualitative aspects, but also being able to compare it directly to the Ministry of Health prototype. And so here we're sort of laying out our evaluation. We have an epidemiologist on staff. We have a research team that's going to be going through a metrics and evaluation on this building to understand what the value of design is in both the retention of mothers as well as in their ability to receive care. And so our goal for this project is to see it, to use that evaluation to understand the value of design, to see it not just as one unit, but also to see it grow to meet this 130 homes, which have been committed to throughout Malawi. Yeah. And that's it. That's sort of the overall site plan.
Thank you. That was fantastic. You know, in both of your examples, you guys did a great job of exemplifying putting the building from the bottom up, or putting the needs of users first, and exemplifying how design can be a catalyst for change. So a maternal waiting room is not it's not something to just be thrown up. It's something to be carefully considered, and thinking about all of the stakeholders involved. A prosthetic knee is not to be made with the cheapest materials and just put out there, and the base case is better than nothing. You're really exemplifying the principles that we want to put forward, that Autodesk Foundation wants to help people and will help people imagine, design, and create the world that we want to live in. So thank you both. I know instead of opening up the floor for questions, everyone who's on now, I'm sure, wants to know how to get involved. So, so Vin, how can folks get involved, either in any way in this new movement that we're pushing forward?
Mhm. Yes. So we are a nonprofit, of course. So just to take it out there, every donation always helps. So that's one easy way that people can get involved and really help us do our work.
Yeah.
Something as simple as kind of following us on social media really helps us build awareness and build our community and sort of have a bigger base of people that we're able to both communicate with and get ideas from and engage with. On the higher end, we work really hard to ensure that any internship or volunteer position is really well structured and really well defined and has a tangible, clear outcome. So if people want to get involved at that level, I would say the best thing is to follow our website for posted internships or volunteer opportunities. And we typically announce those first and foremost on Twitter, so that's probably the best place to get an early sneak peek at anything that goes up.
Cool. Thanks. And Patricia?
Yeah, similarly with the maternal waiting home project, like I said, we're starting construction this fall and are looking for ways that we can support further the evaluation, which I think will prove what you're talking about, that design does matter and that design can have a real impact on social change. And so as we move forward with that project, we're hoping to see the project for maternal waiting homes really scale. I mean, our work at Mass is also scaling, which is very exciting. And similar to what Vin is saying, there are fellowships and internships and opportunities to get involved with Mass specifically. As well as I'm sure there are opportunities very generally. A lot of schools are taking on social innovation and social enterprise kind of programs which allow for this type of work and for designers to kind of learn how to use their skills in this manner, in this context. But I would say specifically at Mass, some of the things that we're doing that are very exciting to get involved in is one on our website. We're starting a This Week at Mass, which shows sort of images and clips from what's going on both on site and in the office. For a lot of our different projects. We have offices in Kigali, in Rwanda, in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, and in Boston. And so it's a way not only for people to kind of see behind the scenes of different offices, but also for us in the office to see what others are up to in a really tangible way. And then additionally, we're starting a whole series of Beyond the Building videos, which you can see on our website called massdesigngroup.org. And by going on there, you can see more in depth some of the work that we're doing in different countries, as well as even submit your own proposal for what you think Beyond the Building means to you. And so those are just a couple ways, obviously Twitter, Facebook, etc., for Mass-specific kind of things. But yeah, we love including people in this movement. We really are about building a movement, building capacity for more people, more designers to get involved in social impact and social change.
And I should say that on the Autodesk.org, the Autodesk Foundation website, which is www.autodesk.org, we have links to both of your websites. So for anyone that's watching that wants to go directly to Mass or D-Rev, you can link through that. Guys, thank you so much. I'll finish by saying that this is just a start. Autodesk Foundation is the first and only foundation that's pushing design in the social sector to help people imagine, design, and create a better world. And I'm thrilled that you guys are a part of this with us. And we'll be doing more of this engagement to push forward the field. So thanks for starting with us.
Thanks for having us. This is wonderful.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, we're really excited to participate.
Great. Thank you both.
Thanks.